Hi, my name is HSLDA. I'm a teacher here at HSLDA Chemistry Labs, and what we're going to be covering today is kind of a preview of Chapter 3. Now, one of the things that people like to do a lot is they like to take mathematics out of science, and they call that like conceptual physics or conceptual chemistry, and it's really where you think about the chemical properties or you think about the physical properties that happen, and you rid it of all mathematics. Now, that may have its place, and I'm not the biggest fan of approaching science in that way, but I see the relevance of it. This chapter is quite the opposite. This is where we're getting into the heavy mathematics of this chemistry stuff, because all science is built on mathematics. I think one of the best ways I like to describe it is I'm a physicist and a chemist by nature and by training, and so I would hang out with a lot of musicians because I used to play a lot of trombone and jazz and that kind of stuff. And so one day I was hanging out with my friend who we were both in college, and he was saying he was taking this course called The Nature of Mathematics. And so he was basically taking a course basically describing how mathematics works, but not really the actual mathematics. And he didn't learn any of the real, paper to pencil or mathematics, writing down equations. He just learned about how they were all went together. And I said, wow, that's a really interesting course, because I'm taking a course called The Mathematics of Nature. And he said, oh, I didn't see that in the category. And I said, yeah, it's called chemistry or physics. That's what chemistry and physics is. It's describing the real world using mathematics, describing the chemical world or the chemical properties using mathematics. That's what we're getting into. So this is one of the great tools, and I call this my ABCs, because I describe putting chemistry together like poetry. And you can't have poetry without knowing your ABCs, and your ABCs are your mathematics. So in this chapter, you're going to have to build up some skills. One thing that is really especially important is the bridge notation and converting units. If you have trouble with that, please let your teacher know as quickly as possible, and really understand this concept, because I'll tell you this. If you have trouble with converting units, and I think that would be possibly in section 1 almost. Yeah, it's in section A. If you have trouble with that, you're going to be really hurting in every single chapter after this. And not only that, but you'll be hurting in all of the other physics courses or other science courses that are coming up, because a lot of what we do is built on that kind of mathematics and that kind of understanding of that. And we're using units all the time. So let's get into the meat of this chapter, and we're talking about measuring the different units. We're talking about like the scientific units versus the English standard units. We're prefixes and suffixes. As a scientist, I use these all the time, the prefixes and suffixes, and you're really going to have to learn a little bit about scientific notation. That's really important. Conversion factors, like I said, that is one of the bread and butter of what we do, so you really need to have that concept down. Taking measurements, we'll want to talk about accuracy and precision, and we're going to want to talk about significant figures and significant digits. Look, as a Christian working in science, we have a responsibility to be as accurate and honest in all of our actions. And the proper use of mathematics is a key part of us being able to do that responsibly. What else are you going to be hitting on this chapter? You're going to be doing, when you add and subtract different numbers, you have different rules for your significant digits, and also how to problem solve correctly. I think the only equation you're really going to learn in this one is density is equal to mass over volume. That is a pretty simple, straightforward equation that you probably should have learned back in back in middle school. And yeah, this chapter is crucial to being the foundation that all the other chapters are built on. And there is no, I don't think that we're going to have a lab for this chapter that has a formal write-up. Now, we're going to have, you might have a demonstration, or you might have smaller labs, or even just questions, that additional questions that your teacher poses, but there's not going to be a formal lab write-up for this chapter.